Amanda Richardson arrived at Cafe Luna 15 minutes early, as was her habit. At 36, she had built Richmond Tech Solutions from a startup into a multi-million-dollar company through meticulous planning and an inability to accept failure. But now, 18 months after the car accident that had changed everything, she found herself facing a challenge that no amount of strategic thinking could solve: learning to live again. The wheelchair was still new enough that she noticed every sidewalk crack, every doorway that was just a little too narrow, every stare from strangers who saw the chair before they saw her. Today's blind date, arranged by her well-meaning assistant despite Amanda's protests, felt like another exercise in futility. She positioned herself at a corner table, her back straight despite everything, and checked her watch. 7 p.m. Right on time, a man in his late 30s approached her table, took one look at the wheelchair, and stopped dead. "Amanda?" he asked, his voice already carrying the tone of someone looking for an escape route. "Yes," she replied, extending her hand with the professional grace that had served her well in countless business meetings. "You must be David." David glanced around the cafe nervously, then sat down with obvious reluctance. "So, this is unexpected," he said, gesturing vaguely toward her wheelchair. Amanda felt the familiar tightness in her chest, part anger, part resignation. "My assistant mentioned that I'd had an accident. I assumed she'd been more specific about my circumstances." "Well, she said you'd been through some challenges, but I thought maybe you meant like a divorce or something." David was already reaching for his phone. "Look, I'm really sorry, but I just remembered I have an early meeting tomorrow. I should probably head out." "Of course you should," Amanda said quietly, her voice steady despite the familiar sting of rejection. David left money on the table and hurried away, leaving Amanda alone with her untouched coffee and the weight of another failed attempt at normalcy. She was gathering her purse when a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. A man in work clothes was arguing quietly with the hostess, oil stains visible on his hands despite his obvious attempt to clean up. "Ma'am, I know I'm not dressed properly," he was saying, his voice patient but tired. "But I promised my sister I'd meet her date here, and I just got off a double shift. Could I just grab a quick coffee to go?" The hostess looked skeptical. "Sir, we have a dress code." "It's fine," Amanda found herself calling out before she could stop herself. "He's with me." The man turned toward her voice, and Amanda was struck by his kind eyes and genuine smile. He was probably around 40, with graying hair at his temples and the weathered hands of someone who worked with them for a living. "Thank you," he said, approaching her table with obvious relief. "I'm Jake Martinez. I think there might be some confusion, though. I was supposed to meet my sister here to apologize for missing her birthday dinner last week." "I'm Amanda," she replied, "and there's no confusion. I was just abandoned by my blind date, and you were being turned away for not meeting arbitrary dress standards. Want to sit down and commiserate over coffee?" Jake hesitated, glancing at the hostess who was still watching disapprovingly. "Are you sure? I really am pretty underdressed for this place." "Trust me," Amanda said with the first hint of humor she'd felt in months. "After what I've been through tonight, your work clothes are the least concerning thing in this cafe." Jake sat down, and Amanda found herself genuinely curious about this stranger who had stumbled into her evening. "Double shift?" she asked. "Yeah, I own a small auto repair shop. One of my guys called in sick, and we had 3 cars that people needed back today." Jake looked at his hands ruefully. "I scrubbed for 10 minutes, but engine oil has a way of becoming permanent." "What kind of shop?" "Nothing fancy. We mostly work on older cars, help folks who can't afford the dealership prices. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest work." Amanda found herself drawn into conversation with this man who spoke about his customers like they were family, who had worked a double shift and still driven across town to meet his sister. There was something refreshing about his straightforwardness, his lack of pretense. "So what about you?" Jake asked. "What do you do when you're not being stood up by guys who clearly don't deserve your time?" "I run a tech company," Amanda said, waiting for the usual reaction, the shift in demeanor when people realized she was successful, wealthy, potentially useful to them. But Jake just nodded. "That's impressive. Must be challenging work?" "It can be. It's gotten more challenging since..." She gestured toward her wheelchair, testing his reaction. Jake's expression didn't change, didn't fill with pity or discomfort. I imagine it would be. Having to adapt how you do things you've always done, dealing with people's assumptions. That takes strength. It was such a simple acknowledgement, free of the overly careful language most people used, that Amanda felt something relax in her chest. "You're the first person who said it like that," she said softly. "Most people either act like nothing's changed or treat me like I'm made of glass." "I worked construction for 15 years before opening the shop," Jake said. "Saw plenty of guys get hurt on the job. The ones who did best were the ones who got mad about the obstacles, not sad about them." "You seem like someone who gets mad at obstacles." Amanda laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time in months. "You know what? I am mad at obstacles. I've been furious at every curb, every doorway, every person who assumes they know what I can and can't do." "Good," Jake said firmly. "Fury is useful. Fury gets things done." They talked for 2 hours. Jake told her about taking over his father's failing shop and building it into something sustainable. Amanda shared stories about starting her company in her garage, the late nights and early mornings, the satisfaction of solving problems that seemed impossible. "Can I ask you something?" Amanda said as the evening wound down. "Why didn't you react when you saw the wheelchair?" "Most people do," Jake considered the question. "My daughter has cerebral palsy. She's 12 now, and she's taught me that the wheelchair isn't the person. The person is the person. You're clearly smart, successful, funny. Why would I care how you get around?" Amanda felt tears prick her eyes. "You have a daughter?" "Yeah, Lucy. She's with her mom tonight. We share custody. She'd probably like you, actually. She has no patience for people who underestimate her." "I'd like to meet her sometime," Amanda said, surprising herself. "She'd love that. Fair warning, though, she'll probably want to race you. She's very competitive in her wheelchair." As they prepared to leave, Jake walked beside Amanda toward the exit, not hovering or trying to help unnecessarily, just being present. "Thank you," Amanda said as they reached her car. "This turned out to be a much better evening than I expected." "Thank you for rescuing me from the dress code police," Jake replied with a grin. "Would you maybe want to have dinner sometime? Somewhere with less rigid standards about work clothes?" Amanda felt that flutter of possibility she'd thought was gone forever. "I'd like that. But Jake, dating someone in a wheelchair comes with complications. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Jake met her eyes directly. "Amanda, dating anyone comes with complications. The question isn't whether there will be challenges, it's whether the person is worth navigating them for. And something tells me you're definitely worth it." 6 months later, Amanda sat in the garage of Martinez Auto Repair, laptop balanced on her knees as she worked while Jake finished up with a customer. Lucy was beside her, doing homework and occasionally offering opinions about the business software Amanda was developing. "You know," Lucy said, looking up from her math worksheet, "Dad's been different since he met you." "Different how?" Amanda asked. "Happier. He sings more, and he's not as worried about me all the time." Lucy paused thoughtfully. "I think it's because you show him that people in wheelchairs can do anything. Like run companies and be awesome." Amanda felt her heart swell. "You know what, Lucy? I think you and your dad have shown me something too. You've shown me that the right people don't see obstacles. They just see possibilities." That evening, as the three of them shared dinner at Jake's kitchen table, Amanda reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that disastrous blind date. She'd gone to that cafe expecting disappointment, and instead found something she hadn't known she was looking for. A man who saw her strength before her limitations, a daughter who treated her like family from day one, and a love that had nothing to do with perfection and everything to do with acceptance. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as disasters. A rude date who walked out led her to a man who walked in just when she needed him most. A moment of embarrassment became the foundation for a love built on genuine understanding and mutual respect. And sometimes, the most beautiful thing about finding someone special isn't that they ignore your challenges. It's that they see them clearly and choose to stay anyway, not because they pity you, but because they recognize that true strength often comes from learning to thrive despite the obstacles life places in your path. The smile Amanda thought she'd lost forever had returned. Brighter than before because it was built on something solid. The knowledge that she was loved not in spite of who she was, but because of exactly who she was.